You're perfect this week because you just had them, and now you're going to have them again. So we get you sort of what you saw on Sunday and what you're expecting to see the upcoming week. You were pretty vocal in this game, saying, "I don't understand why this team's not running the ball more." Why? What got you to that point?
I think they've just completely shifted their identity, which is fine. I think they're still going through some of that, but later in the year, and Brock knows this, like, if you're going to compete with these teams late in the year, you got to find a way to get something done on the ground. Part of that, teams have found ways to supplement the run game with, adding a fly sweep here or there, adding, some quarterback designed run on a draw, or some of the zone read type stuff with Geno, the way he's playing, so long as he promises to get down and not get injured, right? Like, that's the one thing you fear when you start running the quarterback. But I was just a little shocked at the personnel they have and the lack of the run game. That's not, the end of the world for this team. As long as you're getting yards and scoring points, hey, everybody's formula to win is different. I just felt like later in that game, when you're trying to put a team away who's on the road, it's raining, your crowd's into it, finally you're ready to snap this 4-game losing streak at home, which is unheard of at Lumen Field. I mean, that place is like where opponents go to die. So, or at least it used to be. And now, you're starting to get that juice back. It's like you want to punish this team. And, once again, Brock knows this. They've made, you watch Arizona, their last 2 games before this one. I mean, they made the Bears and the Jets completely quit and submit in the second half. And there's no better feeling for an offense and an offensive line. You want momentum late in the season, you got to go run the ball, man. And so I was a little shocked at with all those factors that they wanted to throw. I mean, I made the throwaway comment at the end when they take a knee saying, hey, if they would have thrown the ball there, I would have been pretty upset.
I'm going to get to a few of those things, including some of the creativity or the lack thereof at times in the offense. But I am curious, you went up and spent some time around the team as well, right? Got to see a little practice, maybe. The power was out. I don't know. I would hope some time with some of the coaches. What was this was, without Pete for the first time in all of these years and your background with him. What were your kind of big picture takeaways before the game kicked off?
I really was impressed with Mike Macdonald. I loved his demeanor. I loved his focus. I thought he's still learning, and I love that he was he recognized that he's still learning. He recognized that he's a first-year coach and still trying to figure out his workflow. And it's so funny, you don't think about this, but the job in the NFL that coaches the least amount of football is the head coach. And it sounds crazy, but it's so true. And I've talked to Kevin O'Connell about this. I've talked to some other head coaches that's one of the first things you realize is that you don't get to just do the X's and O's anymore. You're no longer just the coordinator. You've delegated those responsibilities. And now, you're carving out time in your day when you normally were watching film and prepping and getting your call sheet ready. Now you're trying to figure out, okay, which player is going to be on the face of the ticket for Game 6 at home in November. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy the stuff that you're required to do and how much that takes away from the actual X's and O's and your ability to coach. So it was funny, talking to him and talking to Julian Love. And Julian Love's, it's not like he's a rookie. This dude's been around, been in multiple systems, really intelligent guy and a high football IQ. So he made the comment like coach will come up on Saturdays talking about, hey, what if we tweak this blitz? What if we do that blitz? And Julian was kind of alluding to he got to the film a little later in the week kind of thing. And Macdonald even made mention of it. He's like, sometimes I'm trying to figure out my workflow and like what I can and can't do. He's like, but I got to do my best not to overload these guys the day before the game when I'm ready and I'm, explaining to them, hey, I think if we drop this defensive end and bring this safety, as long as we get it communicated, we can get home to the quarterback. And the guys are like, dude, come on, man.
Mark,
it was funny. Those are just growing pains as a coach, and I'm glad he recognized them.
Well, you'll get a kick out of this. We spend every Monday morning with him, and it's been quite a learning curve. After 14 years with Pete, that just talked and talked and talked and talked. And I think it was over tacos there at our seminar that you and Adam and I and some others were talking about all the NFL head coaches that do a quick little presentation, right, for the NFL Fox guys. And I think the takeaway with Macdonald was like, oh, he's really green. He's really raw, really young at this, from a present standpoint compared to some of his peers. So comparing and contrasting that kind of first impression back in whatever that was, late July, early August, to what you sat down with here mid-season, where have you kind of maybe seen him grow in that presence?
Oh, I think he's absolutely grown. I think he was great in our production meeting. A lot of coaches feel like it's an interrogation and, you're trying to get all this information and you're going to go tell everybody, right? Well, that would put our job in jeopardy. That's so far from what, I want to do. I want to call really good football games. I'm not trying to break news. That's just not my job. I'm not Schefter. I'm not all those guys. That's not my thing. So I'm glad he recognized that. And it's hard for first-year coaches to, answer some of these questions. And, you know how it works, Brock. These guys, some of these coaches, it's like you're the FBI and they're being interrogated or deposed and they don't want to say anything. They don't want to tell you who's hurt. Everything's just kind of maybe sort of, you know what I mean? Everything's just gray area and no definitive answers. He was awesome. Hey, this guy's up. This guy's not. We're going to work so-and-so out before the game. We'll let you know at the deadline, an hour and a half before the game or whatever. And I really appreciated that because that's not easy for coaches to do. And I understand their hesitation, and trepidation with that. It's you're worried about giving up state secrets and having something that you said come back to bite you and beat you in the game. So I thought he did a great job of that, owning the room. And, he's dealt with he's figuring out that his decision-making and discernment is what really will set him apart. And that's not just clock management during a game. It's how are we going to handle the week when the power's out at the facility? Are we going to go to the stadium and practice? These are the kind of decisions that he makes now instead of just going with the flow and whatever the head man says, let's do that.
It's so funny.
So it's fun, though. It's fun to watch him, and he's been great about it.
It's so funny because I feel like all too often coaches in the NFL don't get hired because of those other qualities. Yep. They get hired, right, because they're the best offensive coordinator on whatever team went to the Super Bowl that year. And year after year, GMs and owners completely forget about what head coaches actually have to be good at and then just go with the same thing over and over again. And that could have been Macdonald. I mean, he was known as this incredible defensive schemer. Let's focus on the defense here for a moment. You got to see it at the best we've seen so far this year. Can the defense that we watched on Sunday just completely dominate Arizona? Can that defense show up for the rest of this season, week after week?
Well, I think that's what they're banking on. And, I mean, Leonard Williams had a coming-out party for this season. We know he's a threat on the defensive line, him and Jaron Reed, but they looked awesome together. And it looked like they finally got in sync. And a lot of that is, they've completely overhauled their linebacker room. So it was, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen maybe going into a game, Brock. I said, wait a second, I'm watching this tape. These dudes, number 0 is not even here. Wait, what happened to this guy? And so I got to go back. When you have them late in the year like that, you got to go back and look at all these articles, and because you can't possibly follow 32 teams and know every single roster move. So it was a lot of work trying to figure out, wait, who the heck are they? Where's Tyrese Knight coming from? What's going on here? So it was wild that that's happened there. Hasn't been lead stories on a bunch of shows other than local stuff, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But then you have a center retire and mid-season, and it was one little blurb on a couple articles. I was like, wait, what? So the fact that this team is even competitive with those kind of changes is one thing. The fact that they're playing well right now and on a little bit of a streak here, that's going to give them all the confidence in the world. And that takes a lot of guts. We talked about Mike Macdonald to make those changes. Remember, he was in Baltimore when they acquired Roquan Smith mid-season. So he's been through this linebacker shuffle before during the season. And you could tell with the moves they made. So I think their versatility with Jenkins back and we talked about it a little bit in the broadcast, but when they can have Jenkins, Love, and Kobe Bryant and Witherspoon, like those 4 or 5 players, like that really gives them a ton of versatility. So when you go big personnel, you throw Jenkins in there and get him in the box and make him play the run. Now he's going to have to prove that he's going to stop the run, right? Because if I'm the offense, and I said this on the broadcast, I'd run it right at him and make him tackle. And if he can do it, then they deserve it. So that's what they're banking on. And if they can do that, that's going to be a problem for teams. Then they got to get a nickel. Now you throw Witherspoon in there, and come on, man, that's one of the best football players I've ever seen. I mean, it's not even close. This dude is a monster. And I love – he's got the Rondé Barber nickel ability when it comes to the run and instincts and playing tough and fitting his gap. And then the dude covers like Darryl Green. Like, it's ridiculous the way he can shadow and mirror receivers. I love watching him.
Hold on a second.
You also just got a little crash course in what it's like to be a Seattle sports fan. Like, hey, nobody's mentioned any of these things nationally. How weird! Like, welcome to our world here, Mark. Yeah,
that's the juxtaposition that the Pacific Northwest is in. Like when you want those stories about the linebackers being traded and cut and everything to kind of get swept under the rug, like the center retiring. Okay, nobody listened to that. But we also want to make Witherspoon an all-pro. You can't have both.
Well, hold on. Well, I think your comment right there will go a long ways. I think you just said something that I saw Salk's face. He's like he just, I don't know, smelled something, like smelling salts right there. Like, what did he just say? Did he just say that Devon Witherspoon is one of the best players you have ever – you said the best player you have ever seen.
I said one of the best that I've ever seen. His football instincts and his physical traits are unreal. The way he can mirror, like he has legit mirror man qualities where he almost runs the route for the guys in the slot, which is really hard to do. And his body control, the way he can stop and start, he's got ball skills. And, okay, put it this way. Go back to the 49ers game. Their best blocker on offense is probably Juszczyk, him or Kittle, right? Well, Kittle's out of the game. At one point, because Witherspoon was running out with Juszczyk motions when they put him way out wide, they motioned him almost to the sideline just to get Witherspoon as far away from the run as possible. Not only did he take on Juszczyk, he made the play. He made the tackle. Like, on the edge, because the ball got bounced exactly where they didn't want it to go, he fit up on Juszczyk and made the tackle, long-armed him, and kept his outside arm free. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, they literally tried to get him out by the Gatorade bottle. Like, and he still makes the play. The dude's nasty, bro. Wow. He's one of the best players, I'm telling you.
How about the game-changing play he made on 4th down, right? I mean,
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, the Spider-Man athleticism to chase down Kyler. But the beauty of it was then he taunted Kyler. Like, if you watch the replay, he taunts Kyler on the sideline.
And
then he's like,
and he made the scoring block.
Yes.
And he made the scoring block for Kobe Bryant.
Yes.
This dude, and has time to talk smack on the sideline. Like, this guy is, come on, dude. Come on. It's unbelievable. And he doesn't say anything. Like, I said hi to him before the game. I don't get nervous to talk to some of these players. Like, they're superstars, but I've seen plenty of them. I played with LT. I played with, you name it. I played with some big-time players. And this dude, I was like, damn, like, and he's like 170 soaking wet. I mean, he's not that big, but he plays like he's 6'5", 250.
You said LT. Crazy. I was like, you're not that old. And then I realized you meant
LaDainian
Tomlinson.
LaDainian Tomlinson. Yeah,
my
bad.
That took me a second as a
devout
Lawrence Taylor fan. That's my youth right there. Like, I've always sort of held it against LaDainian that he used that nickname. Like,
yeah,
like that one's taken, man. Like, I feel like somebody already has that. I don't know.
Mark, my last question for you is I'll throw one at you that Salk threw at me because we do a little Blue 88 and some X's and O's. And one of my frustrations coming out of this game, and Greg Olson echoed some of the same things in San Francisco, is like, man, it's too predictable. You're lining up in the gun. You're offsetting the back. The defense knows where it's going. Buddha knew where about 8 different plays were going. Like, where is the jet sweep? Where is, a flip 9? Where is a screen? Where is get under center? Where is getting a pistol? Where is just some imagination with this offense and in particular the run game? And so Salk said to me, well, Why isn't Grubb doing that? If you're Ryan Grubb and you were to ask him that question, what would his answer be to retort?
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, we got a chance to sit down with him, and I think he's still figuring some of this stuff out. Remember, these systems, I don't care if you're, Tom Brady or whoever, even Stafford, when he came to the Rams, like, it took a good 8 to 12 weeks to really get in a groove and get these guys on the same page. And so some of that, I love the stuff they do with the pony, 2 running backs with Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. I really like that. I think some of the issues that they're having are, figuring out a couple fundamental things. And this is the last 2 games in particular. But when they put those backs and tight ends kind of offset right off the flank of the tackle to help him with the chip blocks, to help on those big defensive ends, they've been terrible at that. And whether it was Jarrell in there or, last week, Charbonnet has to hit Zaven Collins, number 25, ripping off the edge. He misses that one. So then the tackle's racing to get Zaven Collins instead of helping on the inside Budda Baker pressure. Yeah. So it looks bad, and it looks like, God, these guys are so predictable. Like, how did they know that? Well, these are basic fundamental things. The tackle needs to know, hey, I have help outside. I can't overset this chip so the guy beats me inside. I got to stay nice and shallow on my set, let this guy bump him right back into me and collect him. And then we can kind of wad up 2 gaps. And so it's stuff like that kind of sets them back, and they're reeling after that. And then it looks like, oh, here comes a drop back. Here comes another one. You know what I mean? So it makes you predictable. And I don't care what offense you're in. You get into 3rd and long, 3rd and 7, 8, 9, 10 plus. I mean, you're going to be pretty predictable. Your only changeup's going to be a draw or something, a draw or a screen. But I think there's a couple fundamental things that if they cleaned up, they could really, give this offense a facelift. And just, you got to commit to the run game. Whatever your scheme's going to be, whether it's outside and inside zone, or you're going to go gap trap and just, run it down the pipe, fine. But commit to something and make it an emphasis during the week. And some of that is just getting that continuity with those offensive linemen up front, especially the center.
Last thing for us here, and since you got the game this weekend too against the Jets, you've been a quarterback there. You know what it's like to be 11-5. You know what it's like to be in New York at 6-9. I'm sure it's a very different feeling with that fan base, that media, that city, that everything. Where do you think Aaron Rodgers' head is at right now?
He's got this unique ability to, knowing him the way that I do. We're not best buds, but I'd say we're more than acquaintances. And he has a unique ability to kind of block all that stuff out and compartmentalize, understand the big picture. He can see the aerial view of the parade and still be in the parade, which is a unique quality. So I know he's doing his best to block all this stuff out. The difference there, and I think he's, we talk to him tomorrow, so I'm curious. This will be part of my question, but, avoiding those headlines and annoying stories in Green Bay as opposed to New York, it's just very different. They're just 2 different markets and 2 different animals. And, it's like comparing apples and oranges. They're just not the same. And so I think he's in this position where there's a lot of turmoil around him, a lot of eyeballs on him. And, his job is to just steady the ship and be as professional and almost presidential in a way, And I think that'll kind of be the mode he's in through the rest of the season. And looking forward for them, I mean, this season's not over. It'd be a long shot for them to get back in the race. And they'd have to basically win out. But, what's it going to look like next year? And all those things, if he wants to play football, especially there next year, how he handles the rest of the season will be a factor in that. So I think he's cognizant of that as well.